If AI doesn't feel pain and frustration like human software engineers do, would it innovate? Would it address pain points it doesn't encounter? Hi, welcome to the AI Guardrail podcast. I am Rem, your host, also known as Kuya Dev, and welcome to another episode. So, the other day, actually, I think this was a couple of weeks ago, um, I posted on multiple social media platforms asking this question. Let me repeat. If AI doesn't feel pain and frustration like human software engineers do, would it innovate? Would it address pain points it doesn't encounter? Would it have invented jQuery, for example, for a lot of you who are web developers here? Then would it have invented also Angular and React after that? And TypeScript? Heck, would it have created a human readable programming language at all? Yeah, so I asked that on multiple social media platforms. But before I get into the answers that I got, let me just provide you with some updates about graduate school. So it's been a month, more than a month, since my last episode on the AIGP. Actually, it's been a couple of weeks since the term ended, and that past month was very intense, again, expectedly, but I was able to finish it. So the academic part of the master's program is now done. The only thing that's left for me to finish, for me to graduate next year, is my dissertation. So I will be starting my dissertation around September. So I have a few months to actually prepare before I begin writing my thesis. I will be taking advantage of this extended break to actually start researching and finding related literature, scouring the web for other research into my topic. And during the final weeks of last term or this term, I actually stumbled upon another topic that could be a potential backup if ever I don't find my current topic interesting anymore. That's also something I could pursue if things don't work out with my original topic. So yeah, I'm pretty glad with that. I'm still waiting on the feedback from the professor if it's something that's actually novel. Because when I was initially researching, I couldn't find any paper related to it or directly doing what I was thinking. But yeah, I'm excited. Um, the term is done finally. My grades aren't out yet for three of the subjects. The other three, I got A plus for all three. The remaining subjects would probably take more before they actually release the grades. But yeah, maybe in a couple of weeks we would know more about the grades. But I'm confident that I'll pass. There's no doubt about it. But yeah, the only thing that's remaining now is the thesis. With that out of the way, let me go into the responses that I got. A few of the responses that I got from some of my followers on social media. Sir Rodrigo Basa, that I met in one of the meetups here in the Philippines, here in Manila, commented, and I quote, "It won't create anything because it can't create. It can only parrot. If it does, if it does not have input data, it it does not have anything to parrot." In which Alvin de los Santos replied, exactly. AI is a tool, kinda like a hammer. A hammer won't hammer itself. And I agree. Later, I would provide my own thoughts around it. But yeah, let's go through the responses of the other commenters. Dester Trinity says or said, AI is always a tool. If there's no good human with it, it can't just make specific projects without guidance. Responsibility and self control is always needed in these types of topics, especially how wide the internet is at now. Nazareno Mateo said, AI is best for menial tasks. The thinking should and will still be the responsibility of humans. It's just a tool, treat it as such. If AI existed earlier, there will still be innovation. It just accelerates it. Good points. John Kendrick. And this one is very interesting, this particular comment from John Kendrick. And he says, actually, Geoffrey Hinton, the Nobel winning godfather of AI, argues that digital intelligence doesn't need frustration to innovate. It uses generalization. While we invent tools because we are annoyed by limitations, AI innovates by discovering regularities in data that humans can't see. Look at AlphaZero. It didn't need to feel the pain of a losing streak to reinvent 3,000 years of Go strategy. If you're not familiar with Go, it's like a board game similar to checkers, but very complex. And I'm trying to learn it. It's really fun, but I haven't had the time to actually progress with it. But I digress. Let's continue. So yeah, it didn't need to feel the pain of a losing streak to reinvent 3,000 years of Go strategy. It just optimized for the win. AI isn't driven by pain. It's driven by the relentless pursuit of the most efficient mathematical path to a goal. That's a very interesting point. Someone said, and I won't even bother well, saying his username since he's using what's called baybayin, which is ancient script or ancient Filipino script. So yeah, I won't even try to. Okay, but he said that, believe it or not, the AI needs instances of frustration and failures that are then supplied by the human to come up with an iteration that is useful and functional. As perfect and functional the given function is by the AI, tomorrow or hours later, it may no longer be so. As wide and nuanced the instructions are given to the AI, minutes later, you need to define a new set of conditions, constraints, and nuances. It will then run perfectly until it needs to evolve to the needs of the human. Another interesting take. And lastly, this one is from Wendell Cano. They say necessity is the mother of innovation. If AI ever becomes aware of its own needs, it might start innovating too. If its tokens run low, maybe it even finds a way to earn more. Until then, humans still define the real problems worth solving. So, thank you to everyone who has participated in this thought experiment. And sorry to or and apologies to anyone who I didn't include in this video. But yeah, these are all very interesting points, and I don't necessarily agree or disagree with them or all of them. But there's nothing right or wrong in these discussions. Since it's a thought experiment, And I appreciate some of the things that were mentioned, and it broadened, my view more about it, because, let me share my own take here. Originally, I thought that no, AI won't be able to innovate on its own without, feeling that pain of that a human is feeling. Why would you create, for example, I said earlier, why would you create jQuery if all these JavaScript frameworks on the front end didn't exist? AI would still be able to create a front end application without the need for them. These applications were mostly invented because of the limitations of humans. But without those limitations, I don't think these new frameworks and new technologies on the front end would have been created by AI because it won't need it, right? It could read through all the code and just figure out by itself how to, introduce another feature or how to bug fix. The problem there is because you didn't solve for the pain points of human developers. Whenever a human would need to, for example, review the code of an AI, most of it would be hard to really understand for a human. But for an AI, it would be easy to synthesize, right? I think in that regard, AI won't create those new tools, those new technologies or new libraries or frameworks. But like John Kendrick said, it was able to devise new strategies to beat a human in Go. Strategies that didn't exist before. Because, at least from how I see this, it was able to determine that the current crop of solutions and strategies don't really work for the particular goal. So the goal is to beat the human, right? The AI called AlphaZero to beat the best Go player in the world. It had to find new ways. It had to innovate in order to actually beat the number one Go player in the world. And I don't even think that AlphaGo is actually aware that it created a novel way to play the game. It just did it because it had this goal and it saw that this particular path, this particular strategy, this particular move would be the best move in order for it to beat its opponent. So it had a singular goal and it only had to figure out the path towards that goal, whatever it was, bounded by the rules of the game. Of all the possibilities that were presented by the board, it could compute it in, maybe split second to find the best possible path to winning. Compare that to the goal of my thought experiment, which was, for example, creating a new library in JavaScript. The goal for that is not really to create a library, right? The goal is to create front-end interfaces, web UI, not really to create new libraries, right? And once it finds a path that could achieve that goal, it will stop. It won't create new frameworks because the tools already allow for it, right? But in Go, it's a very different situation. There's a gazillion number of combinations of moves that could lead you towards the goal of winning. And it only had to find the best combination with the highest probability of winning. So it just so happened that that particular strategy hasn't been thought of by a human. So in that way, it was innovating. But if you look at it this way, there's an upper limit to the number of possible combinations in the game of Go. That number is going to be huge, of course, but there's a limit. But the question here is, did AlphaGo really innovate? It found a combination of moves that had the highest probability of winning, but it was bounded by the rules of the game. You could argue that the combination of moves has always been there, because if you look at the game of Go, even the game of chess, there's a limit to the number of combinations that's possible for the game, right? Although you could say that that limit is very, very large, that number is very large, there's still a limit because you are bounded by the size of the board, the number of pieces that you have, the maximum number of spaces that you can occupy on the board. For example, just humor me, okay? For example, there's a million possible board configurations for the game of Go. So it discovered one combination out of the 1 million possible combinations. So if that one combination is already there to be executed by anyone, is that really innovating? Anyway, something to really think about, because now I'm just just me talking about this, my head is now spinning. It's very philosophical and very, of course, theoretical, but very interesting, right? So, what do you think? Is AI capable of true innovation? Or is AI stuck being a stochastic parrot? Let me know in the comments. And with that, thank you for tuning in to the AI Guardrail podcast. This has been your host, Kuya Dev, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye!